Hi, I'll try this again. I just tried recording earlier. It didn't work too well, so I'll get a hang of this. So I just wanted to answer some questions people have been asking about getting into rental properties and where do you begin? There's a lot of information out there about passive income and what the business, you can earn money for not working. That's not really the truth. So I just kind of wanted to go over the overview of what it's like to do rentals in case you're thinking about getting into it. So I'll share a screen. I created a little presentation to kind of go through it. So the rental business, it's not really a business. Well, it's a business. It's not an investment. It's a people business. So if you think it's just going to be about collecting rent checks, this is a full contact sport. You're dealing with people. And let's see if I can move this forward here. Bear with me. I will figure this out yet. And this isn't working either. There we go. You are providing housing to people. So you're dealing with people and their lives. Lives go crazy. People lose jobs. They have events happen in their lives. And you're providing the most important thing to them, a roof over their head, a safe place to live, a place for their kids, for their family. So you want to do this right. This is not just about collecting rent checks. You do want to do that as well. You got to stay financially healthy during this. You also need to run your business efficiently, like we talked about. You need to understand the people's needs and what they're going through, and understand the numbers of financial. You have to be financially strong to keep the rental property, keep their house in good working order. So you have to run budgets. You have to buy the properties right, and you have to manage it to collect rents properly, because ultimately that's what's going to keep that house in good shape. So you have to run the business effectively, and then you have to understand the fair housing requirements. It's nothing to be worried about, but you do have to be aware of what the fair housing requirements are, and then understand your local rental regulations and licenses. Different municipalities have different rules and regulations regarding rentals. So the first step, what I would recommend is you identify who your customer is going to be. Who do you want to market to? Who are you going to rent to? That's going to determine basically what kind of business you set up. You're going to be dealing with people. Who are your customers that you want to deal with? And what is your ideal customer, and what kind of housing do they need, and what kind of rents can they afford to pay? These are kind of questions to think through as you start pondering the rental business. So some market niches you can focus in on student housing. There's a great demand for student housing around campuses, and this is a great business model. Then you have like workforce housing, affordable housing, starter housing. These are always going to be high in demand. There's just affordable housing's become a big issue, and there's been a shortage of it. So if you can provide high quality housing to this market segment, you've got a very viable market. And then we have like the seniors. We're calling it the baby boomers are aging. They call it the silver tsunami. So now where do all these people, as they're kind of aging up, 70s, 80s, 90s, where are they going to move into? What kind of housing transitions are they going to need? Do we have enough housing stock to provide for that transition? We're going to have, just the early on is 55 plus, right? You're just active lifestyle. You're going to need maybe one level living. You might have some surgeries going on, bad knee or something. And then you kind of age out a little bit more. Maybe you need a little more services. You kind of get into an assisted living model. Or if you have like Alzheimer's, you have a memory care. And there's all different levels of housing that's needed in that market. So that's a viable business as well. And then obviously the real popular one right now is the vacation rental model. This is kind of borderline. This is getting into the hospitality industry versus just a straight rental. But those are things to consider. Who are your customers going to be, and how do you target those? What kind of housing do they need, and what can they afford to pay? And then you're going to base the business structure off of that. So that's where I would recommend starting. And obviously the most important thing in real estate is location, location, location. And there's one of the better videos here if I can show it. Here we go.
There's an old real estate maxim that says the three most important things in looking for a property are location, location, location.
That's just one thing.
That's the point, buddy.
What, the real estate people are stupid?
No, that location is the one most important thing in real estate.
Then why do they say it's three things?
Because real estate people are stupid.
Yeah, I still love that show. So we'll go back to location. So now you kind of have your demographic that you're kind of picking out who your target market is, whether it's student housing, senior housing, 55 plus, affordable housing, workforce housing. So once you kind of pick a location, where you want to build that business, you just want to focus in on studying that market. So kind of watch the rents on Zillow. Zillow does some rent estimates. They do the rents. Apartments.com is kind of taken over a lot of that off of Zillow, and Craigslist is always a good place. Facebook Marketplace also lists those available properties for rent. So just watch that market, start learning the rents. That's the key to making rentals work, is just knowing what that rent and what you can pay for a property. And then study the properties for sale. What are those going for? Can you buy those and have the rents support it? Typically, you kind of want to look for like a 1% ratio. So if you're going to buy it for $250,000, you're going to need pretty close to $2,500 a month. Maybe you can do it for $1,800 to $2,000 if you've got a really solid location and your vacancy is super low and you're going to bank on some appreciation. But ideally, you want to be a little closer to that 1%. So that's kind of a target market to hit. You're going to base it off of a spreadsheet. You'll create a formula to run cap rates on it. But that's a quick overview on, does that area support the rent, support the prices? And then check the local requirements. You've identified your location. What do you need for licensing? Do you need a rental license in that city? Not all cities require it. Some do. Are there inspections tied with that rental license, and what do they look for on the inspections? And make sure your house is safe, and provide good housing. You're in a business, take care of the properties so you get good tenants. Check different addendums. A lot of cities around here will do crime-free, drug-free housing addendums. So that allows you to evict that tenant if there's excessive police calls or, one drug infraction, or you have the right to evict them. And the cities want to see that in the lease to deal with problem housing. Association rules and regulations. If you're looking at association properties, townhomes, condos, make sure that the associations allow for that rental on the property before you buy something. So you got to do your homework on that. Then you got to understand the fair housing requirements. There's a Fair Housing Act that's nationally, you're not going to discriminate against disability, race, sex, color, national origin, religion, family status. And then the state will have additional classes as well. Not all states do, but a lot of them do. And just kind of make sure that you're up to date on that, so you don't accidentally discriminate without realizing you're doing it. I don't think anyone really intentionally does it, but you can get tripped up if you're not careful on your procedures. And then start analyzing your properties. You've been studying that market, so you're going to look at the rents, kind of figure out what your expenses are going to be. You kind of know what that water and sewer will be. If you don't know for sure, you can try calling the city and see if you can get that water. The taxes you can kind of look at. Sometimes you can have the tenant pay for the water. Water typically goes with the title of the property. So that's one of those rubs that oftentimes the landlord will pay for. Vacancy rates, you should be able to find out kind of what that going vacancy rate is. Across the market, it's usually somewhere between 3 and 5% right now, but I think historically it's closer to 8 to 10%. But there's such a housing shortage right now, so the vacancies are pretty low. But check your local area, because everything's based on the local market, what the jobs are and the population. So that's what drives housing. And then financing. Financing is going to be a little higher on rental properties. So understand what it's going to take to finance your properties, and then work that into a spreadsheet and figure out what your cash on cash return is and your cap rates, and see if it's a viable deal or not. Most people start with the numbers and then work backwards to the house. I'm suggesting you start with the customer, look to the house, and then start working on your numbers. You're starting up a business, run it like a business, treat your customers well, provide a good product and service, and you're going to be very successful at it. If you don't think that's the way you want to go, there are opportunities to do passive real estate investment. That would be buying into like a syndication, private placement memorandum, or other vehicles like that, in like a partnership where you have someone run the property for you. Even if you're not going to run the properties yourself and hire a property manager, you still want to follow that business formula. You're just hiring someone to run that business for you. So you start with the customer first and then build your product to suit that customer. So those are my tips for getting into the rental property business. I hope you find it useful. If you have any questions, just shoot me a message. Thanks.